Hello friends, I am Sanket. Our today's topic is using auto layout constraint in your iOS application. So now in previous session we had discussed about the what is auto layout, what is constraint, how to use it in your application. So now in today's topic let's see the practical basis. So let's create new extra projects. I am using one single view application. Just click on next, your product name. So now here my product name is auto layout constraint, and then click on next and create. So now constraint is a very important part for the application designing concept. Whenever you develop any application, your application has been created in a responsive manner. It means your design means your application has been run on a different devices perfectly. Now you can design in any screen, but your application will run on all devices. For example, I am designing one screen. So now let's start with the auto layout and constraint. So now first here you have to knowing about the fundamental of different iPhone devices. So now here you can see the bottom of the part, there are different types of iPhones and iPad devices are there. For example, iPhone 4S, iPhone SE, iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, then after iPhone XS, XR and the XS Max. Then after you can see that various types of iPads are there according to as a orientation. So iPad Pro 9.7, iPad Pro 10.5 and then iPad Pro 12.9. Okay, so now these are the different types of devices are there, you can use according to your requirement. Now again you can see the next option, it's the orientation. So here you can see there are two options as a portrait and second one the landscape. You can also use this option as per your requirement. By default orientation mode is portrait. Now these are the iPhones and iPad devices designing parts for the purpose of the application designing. Now you can see again these options for the constraint and auto layouts issue. So now you can see there are the option resolve auto layout issue, add a new constraint, the alignment of your control and then embed. It means it's a stack. Okay, so now here I am selecting the iPhone 8 for the designing purpose. Okay, so now let's start the designing first. So now here first I am changing my background color here. So now here I am designing one login screen. Okay, then after I am set a different constraint. It means my application is right now designing on iPhone 8, but then after your entire screen means your application will run on all device on perfectly. It means it's a responsive manner. So now at that time we can use auto layout constraint. So now let's design your screen first. So now here I am designing first as a text field. So I am putting one text field for the username. So now this is my text field for the username. Again I want second text field, so now I'm just copy and paste. So now this text field for the password. I'm putting one button also for the login. Okay, so now here I'm changing first button title as a login and I'm increasing the font of this button, for example. And now I'm also use this background property for your button background. Now I'm change the size of button means height and width, and now I am set on center. Okay, so now here you can see there are three different controls are there on your screen. Okay, now let's see the screen is as a preview base. Okay, means without run your application you can see your application on different devices. Okay, so now using these options, so now first go to assistant editor, and now you can see this option is automatic. So now just click and choose this option as a preview storyboard. Okay, so now you can see your application preview, means your screen preview on a different devices without run your application. So now here for example, here is the same device iPhone 8. So now first I am remove this device. Now you can select any device. Okay, if you want to see the output on a different device, for example here I am using iPhone 8 Plus. So now see, this is the iPhone 8 Plus and this is the iPhone 8. So now you can see the difference between a layout margins. Okay, so now here you can see the in your iPhone 8 Plus the layout has been break. Okay, because you have to design in an iPhone 8, but whenever you run your application on iPhone 8 Plus, so see the output. Okay, your layout has been break. Okay, because right now I'm not using any constraint on auto layout concept. So now let's start this set a constraint according to your requirement. Now again you can see whenever your application run on as a landscape mode, so now see the difference. Okay, so now here I'm using as iPhone 8, but whenever I will run an application on iPhone 8 Plus on as a landscape base. So now see the difference. Okay, now again you can see your layout has been break. So now without constraint you have to see this output. Now I'm set a constraint as per a responsive manner, means your application will run perfectly on different devices. So now how to use constraint and how to set it. So now let's start with your first text field. Okay, so now just select your text field. Now here you can see the various options are there for the constraint option. Now I am using this option. So now you can see the second option as a add new constraint. Okay, so now just select it. Okay, now you can see the different types of options are there in this pop-up window. Now you can see this is the top part, this is the leading part, it means your left part, this is your right part, right, it means your trailing parts, this is your bottom parts. So now actually constraint is based on 4 different types of margin space. Now first is top. So now you can see there are the 165 pixel. Now the second one is leading, it means your left margin space. Now third one is the trailing, it means the right space margin, and the fourth one is your bottom. Okay, so now whenever you use a screen design concept using constraint, so now these are the main constraint part for your screen margin space. Okay, so now let's try to start our first text field. So now just select your text field. So now I am set first as a top space margin. Okay, it is a 165. Now you have to set also your leading space, it means your left space margin, and you have to set as a trailing space, it means you have to right space margin. Okay, now these 3 constraints are the mandatory for designing the all controls. Okay, whenever you design any control on your screen, at that time you have to set these 3 margins using constraint, it means top, leading and trailing. Okay, so now here I am set there are 3 constraints as a top space, leading space and the trailing space. Now click on add 3 constraint. Now see the difference. Okay, now you can see the blue line, it means I am set okay a different constraint on this text field. Now let's try to set another text field. So now again just select your text field. Again I am set the top space, then leading space, then trailing space, and now the add 3 constraint. Okay, so now again your both text fields are set on perfectly on iPhone 8 Plus. Now let's try to set a button constraint. So now select your button again. So now I'm set for as a top. Now here you can see the difference. Your leading space is 126 and your trailing is 127. But whenever you design any control and whenever you set any constraint as a leading and trailing bar, so now actually it's a mandatory to both are same. Okay, so now here I'm changing the leading as a 126 to 127. It means here my leading and trailing both are same. It's a value of 127. So now I'm set the top and the leading and trailing, then I'm click on add free constraint. Okay, so now you can see your entire screen has been set perfectly, okay, on your iPhone 8 Plus. Now you have to see your screen on as a landscape base. So now your controls has been set perfectly as a different orientation. You have to also check with different device. So now here I am using for example iPhone XS. So now you can see, okay, your entire screen controls has been perfectly, means it's a responsive manner. Okay, means at the time your application will be run on any device. Okay, so now for example here I am using iPad. Okay, so now you can see the output of your iPad part. Now your entire storyboard has been set perfectly. Okay, so now here you can see your output on iPad and also here to output on iPhone XS. Okay, it's a work with perfectly. So now this is the constraint. Okay, now here I'm using a simple constraint according to my control requirement. Now let's try to implement some constraint with other control. So now here I'm using one image view. For example, whenever you use your image view on your screen, at that time how to design your image view using a different parts. For example here I'm using one image view, then first I'm set the height and width of my image view. So now here it's a 150 by 150 for example. No, actually it's a very, so now here I'm changing, it's a height and width both are same, it's 100 by 100. Okay, so now here I am designing one image view. So now how to set a image view constraint. Okay, now here I am using one image also. So now first I am add one image on my projects. So now on desktop I have to set, so now here I am putting one image, then after I am add this image using image property. So now for example this is my image. So now you can see the difference between your running iPhone 8. Now you can see the output on iPhone XS and now you can see the output on iPad. Okay, now for example I am removing temporary and iPad, and now for example I see the output on landscape base. Okay, so now see, right now your image view has been a bright layout. It means it's not perfectly set on your screen on as a landscape orientation. So now how to set a constraint of your image view. So now right now your image view is currently on as a centrally horizontal on your screen. Okay, so now first I am set the constraint using as a align. Okay, so now using this option you can see the different option like as horizontally in container and vertically in container, but right now here my image view is at horizontally. So now I'm selecting this option as a horizontally. So now here for example first I'm selecting my image view, then select this option. So now I'm set first constraint as a horizontally. Okay, so now you can see, okay, on your landscape mode, okay, your image view has been set up perfectly in a horizontal manner. Then after, I'm using a second constraint, okay, means I have to set a different constraint using width and height option. It means whenever you run your application in a different device, at that time your image is a same height and width, okay, on the different space margins. So now at that time you have to use this option, means width and height option also. So now I'm using this option using height and width. So now first I'm using this option using height and width, then using add to constraint. Okay, so now you can see your image view has been set perfectly. Okay, now you can see on a different devices. Okay, for example, this application will be run on iPhone 8 Plus. So now you can see your image view has been set perfectly, but you can see some red lines. It means some constraints are missing. So now how to resolve it? Okay, so now simple, just go to here your identity inspector, means interface builder parts. Now you can see here one red arrow, just click on. Okay, now you can see your image part, and you have to see in the add missing constraint. So now just click on. Okay, now you can see your image view has been set on as a perfectly. Okay, so now your application will be run perfectly on a different devices. Okay, whenever you use as a orientation as a portrait or as a landscape, okay, your entire screen has been set perfectly. Okay, so now this is the constraint. So now in constraint there are mainly 4 constraints for the requirement basis, as a you can see. So now here your top, your leading, it means your left parts, then trailing, it's your right parts, and the bottom. So now bottom actually it's a optional parts. Now you have to set according to your requirement basis, but there are mainly 3 constraints. It's a mandatory for the whole controls margin designing using this constraint as the top, leading, and trailing parts. Okay, so now you can set constraint using these options, and you can also use these option for the alignment constraint, and then you have to also use this option for the automatically, it means for the missing constraint layout. Okay, so now this is the auto layout constraint for the iOS application designing. Thank you.